In the shadowy world of organized crime, few events capture the brutal essence of mafia life more than the infamous triple execution that came to be known as the Three Capos murder. It was a calculated bloodbath that occurred within the Bonanno crime family during the early 1980s, a moment that revealed how fragile loyalty could be and how power struggles inside the Cosa Nostra often ended in betrayal, bullets, and blood. To understand the significance of this massacre, we must first journey back into the violent history of the Bonanno family and the storm of ambition and treachery that brewed behind closed doors. The Bonanno family was one of the 5 New York Mafia families recognized by the Commission, a governing body that regulated organized crime in America after the Castellamarese War of the early 1930s. For decades, the Bonannos had operated under the leadership of Joseph Bonanno, the man known as Joe Bananas. But Bonanno's reign was plagued by internal disputes, power plays, and government pressure. By the 1970s, his family was fractured, its reputation shaken, and its future uncertain. Into this volatile mix stepped Philip, Rusty Rastelli, a mobster who rose to the top after years of maneuvering and eliminating rivals. When Rastelli became boss in the mid-1970s, he did so from a prison cell, and his leadership was immediately challenged by others who saw weakness in his absence. Among the most prominent dissenters were 3 powerful Bonanno capos: Alphonse, Sonny Red, Indelicato, Philip Giaccone, and Dominick Trinchera. These men commanded crews, money, and respect. They had grown frustrated with Rastelli's distant rule, which was enforced on the street by his loyal acting boss, Joseph Massino. Massino, a cunning and ruthless mobster, believed his future lay in absolute loyalty to Rastelli. But the 3 capos saw him as nothing more than Rusty's puppet. What began as whispers of discontent quickly grew into an open plot to seize control of the family. Indelicato, Giaccone, and Trinchera envisioned a coup, one that would sweep away Rastelli's regime and place themselves at the head of a revitalized Bonanno organization. Massino, ever watchful, soon learned of the plot. For him, it was a matter of survival. If the 3 capos succeeded, his career would be over, and very likely his life with it. He understood that the Mafia did not forgive betrayal, and hesitation meant death. Massino reached out to Carmine Galanti's former protege, Dominick "Sonny Black" Napolitano, who was also fiercely loyal to Rastelli. Together, they decided the only way to protect their power was to eliminate the threat permanently. What followed was a scheme of deception and murder that remains one of the most notorious acts in mob history. The plan was simple in concept but chilling in execution. The 3 capos would be lured to a supposed peace meeting, a sit-down where grievances could be aired and compromise reached. In reality, it was an ambush, a death trap disguised as diplomacy. Massino carefully orchestrated the details, selecting a location in Brooklyn, a social club on 97th Street, that could be controlled and sealed off from prying eyes. Trusted shooters were assembled, men whose loyalty was beyond question, and they were instructed to wait hidden in the back room until the signal was given. On May 5, 1981, the stage was set. Indelicato, Giaccone, and Trinchera arrived at the club, dressed in their suits, expecting negotiations but perhaps suspecting that treachery hung in the air. As they entered, they were escorted into the room. The door closed behind them, and in an instant, the killers emerged. Guns were drawn, and the silence was shattered by the thunder of gunfire. The 3 capos barely had time to react. Giaccone was hit first, collapsing to the floor. Trinchera, a large man, fought desperately to escape, trying to push toward the door, but he was gunned down before he could reach it. Indelicato attempted to fight back, but he too was cut down in a hail of bullets. When the smoke cleared, 3 bodies lay lifeless, their blood staining the floor of the Brooklyn club. The coup had been crushed before it began, and the message was unmistakable: opposition to Rastelli and Massino would not be tolerated. The aftermath of the murders was as chaotic as the act itself. The mobsters responsible now faced the problem of disposing of 3 corpses in a way that would not attract attention. 2 of the bodies were hastily loaded into vehicles and buried in makeshift graves at an empty lot in Queens, a place that would later become infamous as the Hole, a Mafia burial ground. Indelicato's body, however, was not immediately found. For weeks, his corpse remained hidden until it was discovered by authorities, badly decomposed, dumped in an open lot in Brooklyn. The gruesome discovery shocked even seasoned investigators, who recognized it as yet another sign of the Mafia's brutal internal warfare. For the Bonanno family, the triple execution achieved its intended result. Massino's power solidified, Rastelli's authority was preserved, and the opposition had been annihilated in one calculated strike. But the bloodletting also drew the attention of law enforcement, who were already keeping a close watch on the family. The FBI began piecing together the circumstances of the murders, slowly tightening the noose around Massino and his allies. One of the most critical breaks for the FBI came from an unexpected source: the infiltration of the Bonanno family by undercover agent Joseph Pistone, better known by his alias, Donnie Brasco. Pistone had spent years inside the Bonanno crew of Sonny Black Napolitano, and while he did not witness the murders directly, his intelligence provided invaluable context about the rivalries and personalities at play. As the investigation progressed, the government built a detailed picture of the conspiracy behind the three Capos' murder. Informants eventually came forward, and mob insiders, facing long prison sentences, agreed to testify. The picture that emerged was one of ruthless calculation. Massino had not only planned the killings but had also personally ensured their success, standing by to make certain the job was done. His rise to power was cemented in blood, and his reputation as a cunning boss only grew. The murders also set off a chain reaction inside the Bonanno family. Sonny Black Napolitano, who had supported Massino and helped in the plot, would later fall victim to his own miscalculation. When the FBI revealed that Donnie Brasco had been an undercover agent, Napolitano was held responsible for allowing such a breach. In the Mafia, betrayal by carelessness was treated almost as harshly as betrayal by choice. Napolitano was eventually murdered, his body never officially found, though it is widely believed he was shot and buried at another Mafia dumping ground. Massino, however, continued to climb, eventually becoming the official boss of the Bonanno family after Rastelli's death in 1991. But the violent ghosts of the past never truly disappeared. In 2004, Massino was convicted in federal court on multiple charges, including racketeering and murder. Among the murders tied to him was the execution of the three Capos. Facing life behind bars, Massino became the first official boss of a New York Mafia family to turn government witness, betraying the very code of silence that had protected him for decades. His testimony opened a window into the inner workings of the Bonanno family, confirming in chilling detail how and why the three Capos had been executed back in 1981. The story of the three Capos' murder is more than just a tale of violence. It is a parable about the Mafia itself, about the fragility of alliances, the brutality of ambition, and the ultimate futility of power built on blood. For Indelicato, Giaccone, and Trinchera, their dream of seizing control ended in a slaughterhouse. For Massino, the mastermind behind their demise, victory was temporary, and in the end, he too became a casualty of the world he helped perpetuate. In the streets of New York, the echoes of that day in May 1981 still linger. The Bonanno family, though weakened by arrests and betrayals, continues to exist in some form, but the golden era of Mafia power is gone. The three Capos' murder remains one of the defining moments in its bloody history, a reminder of the price of disloyalty and the lengths to which men will go in the pursuit of power. It is a story written in gunfire and silence, in unmarked graves and whispered betrayals, a story that continues to fascinate because it reveals, in its rawest form, the dark heart of organized crime. Even now, decades later, those who study the Mafia return to that fateful day as a turning point. It marked not only the end of a rebellion within the Bonanno family but also the beginning of the end for the Mafia's aura of invincibility. Law enforcement learned that Mafia bosses were not untouchable, that their power rested on fear and secrecy, and that those secrets could eventually be exposed. The three Capos' murder, brutal and decisive, may have solved a problem for Joseph Massino in 1981, but it set in motion the unraveling of the very world he fought to control.